What's up, guys? Connor O'Hanlon here for another episode of the Greater Society podcast. And today we have a jam-packed episode full of everything spanning the gamut from local all the way to federal politics. We will start today with why the show was not on yesterday, and that is a local issue here in Central Bucks. I will go into as much detail as I can. There are some things that for reasons are better left unsaid for right now until everything's out in the public, I suppose. But I will talk to you about the issue at hand. We've talked about it in the past, but I think it's worth bringing up again. Then we will take a look at, depending on the order that we want to go in, Ron DeSantis's presidential campaign is reportedly struggling. Some might say collapsing. Some might say falling apart. However you might want to describe it, that's, really your choice. But then we will talk about RFK Jr., talking about bioweapons. We'll be talking about him talking about climate change, which he was supposed to be good on. We'll talk another clip of his new endeavor that I guess his presidential campaign is spinning off into. But you know, we'll dive into all of that, and we will also talk about Biden being compared to FDR and LBJ by radical right-wing Republican Marjorie Taylor Greene. Lastly, but not leastly, we will also be talking about the actors' strike, just more broadly, and we have one clip to respond to regarding that. Now, I'm going to start off today talking about something, which is why we did not have the show last night. And I'm trying to find, which is it tells you how easy this is, right? I'm trying to find the link to submit to what I'm going to be talking about, but I can't find it on the website. So I'll just share you guys the website when we get there. But for those that may be new to the show, I am somebody who lives in Bucks County. Now, last night, we had a Central Bucks School Board committee meeting. A special committee was designed in response to a proposed map that was passed by the school board. Now, the school board in Central Bucks is run by 6 Republicans and 3 Democrats. Now, this supermajority, similar to what happens on the Supreme Court, operates in a sense that they don't need bipartisan, they don't need collaboration, they don't need community development, they don't need community input. So originally, the school board passed a map that has been basically deemed illegal. And that is based on an injunction that happened when the map was put forward and placed in front of a judge. The map that they proposed was severely partisan gerrymandered, which for those, I guess, who don't know, gerrymandering is basically drawing a map and making it so that you basically get the outcomes that you want, right? So the Jerry, I believe, came from a guy whose last name was Jerry, and I believe that the maps that the guy drew had a district that looked like a salamander. Now, I think that's why it's called that. You don't have to quote me on that, but basically, it's a way that a party could make it advantageous for their party to win. It could be different racial groups, which has been seen in the United States, and the Voting Rights Act was supposed to ban that. So racial gerrymandering is not supposed to be allowed, and that is not something that has happened here. But the partisan gerrymandering is, which is also considered in some of this stuff. There's a number of ways that you could gerrymander things. You could take a city, split it up. You can split it into small regions. You can split it into one region, put all these people, and have a disproportionate population represented. All of that is to say, the map that was passed without public comment, without any public input, without any sort of counter proposals by the Central Bucks School Board, was passed at a time back in January or February, and then it had to be stopped by a group. The group is called CB Fair Votes, which the map was a counter proposal to the proposed map. Now, the counter proposal is 1, legal, 2, has neutralized the partisan leaning. And if we want to call it a leaning in the original one, that's being generous. But it neutralized it. Now, I'm telling you this, as everybody knows that watches this show, as a strong progressive. I am a registered Democrat. In fact, I am the chairman of the Democratic Party. And the counterproposal map that I am a part of did not, will not, shall not just reverse what they did. AKA, despite the ability to maybe do so, the counter proposal for the CB Fair Votes districts reduces the number of districts from 9 to 3, each of them having multiple representatives, and it ensures that people vote every 2 years rather than every 4. This actively encourages democracy, and when we do this, the regions are divided up to actually represent Bucks County and Central Bucks specifically. How do I mean? Well, for those that are longtime viewers or listeners know that I've said that Doylestown, specifically Doylestown Township, is one of the most swingy towns in the swingiest districts in one of the swingiest counties in the swing state of Pennsylvania. How Bucks goes is how the state of Pennsylvania goes a lot of the time, right? Central Bucks is a microcosm of that. It is about as 50-50 of a partisan split as you can get. So, as a progressive Democrat, the counter proposal that we came out as, and not everyone is a progressive Democrat that supports this. I'll get to that in a second. But, me personally, I am a progressive Democrat. We didn't just say, oh, well, actually, we want 9 Democrats on the board, so let's just gerrymander it so we can get 9. No, we actually made the districts. The districts are divided. I didn't make it. I just support this. The districts are drawn so that each and every single region is competitive. It falls under the state and federal laws that are required. And it provides free and fair elections every 2 years to every single person that is registered to vote in Central Bucks. The Central Bucks School Board formed a committee in response to this, back and forth, because right now there's a stalemate, and I would have to tell you, I'd have to look up the exact court date, but there's a court date for the hearing around this map as a counter proposal to the one that was put forth by school board. By the way, that hearing is open to the public, so when information like that comes out, check Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever. Last night there was a public meeting regarding the process for the hearing around new maps. So, our map will be considered as part of this. That's good. As well as any other map submitted, right? I am skeptical that the actual proposal that we put forth, put time and effort into, will get the fair shake that it deserves. Now, I would happily be proven wrong. But the meeting last night was like functionally 5 minutes of, this is what we're going to do, get your deadline in, and that's how it's going to happen. On Monday, barring changes, Monday night, 7 p.m. at Central Bucks West High School, there will be a public meeting regarding our proposal. Now, I don't know if that's set in stone. We've gone back and forth. The school board wants us to do it. We don't want, because for a number of reasons, we don't want to necessarily be the first and only ones presenting that quickly when we were told last night that we have to present on Monday, aka you have like 4 days, 5 days to come up with a presentation, a package, all this stuff to present to the public, which is not the same, by the way, as presenting a petition. Which, by the way, our petition has nearly 4,000 signatures supporting the CB Fair Votes map. 4,000. That is an incredibly high number of signatures, by the way. This includes, yes, Democrats, but it includes independents, Republicans, non-affiliated other parties, right? We talked to somebody just last night and we're like, hey, and this guy, there's no chance this guy's a Democrat. No shot. And he was like, yeah, I'll sign that. Boom. I want free and fair elections. I want people to vote every 2 years on this. And I want, I think the 9 regions are not fair. They don't make sense. And fewer is better. Now, some people would argue that having at-large seats would also be good. Well, maybe someone should submit that, right? Maybe someone should submit that to the school board and they can consider it. Now, I'm going to show you, just so we're aware, this is the school board website. Now, I got to be honest with you. I thought it would be a lot easier to just be like right here on the front page, but you can't find where we need the submissions. I'm sure I can find it. I just have to find it not live on air. But submissions for other maps are due by August 4th. So, frankly, if you would like to, I guess submit a map. Let's see if it's on the news. Nope. So here you go. Look on the Central Bucks the Central Bucks School District website for how to submit, and it'll be on there. But if you want to put forward your own map, you can do so, because you get a fair shot. Apparently, everybody has a fair shot at presenting now after they got, caught, if that's the right framing you want to say, trying to ram through their own map that was heavily gerrymandered on a partisan basis. So this is all just to say that if you care about having actual representation, if you care about pushing back against the radical far-right takeover of school boards, because if their original map was to be accepted, there would be a perpetual 6-3 or 7-2 or even 8-1 Republican majority forever. Basically, indefinitely. Not forever, because at some point they would probably have to change the lines, but indefinitely. So, this is an important issue. This is why local politics matters. And this is why paying attention to whatever you can on the local level, the state level, it's not as sexy sometimes, but this is the stuff that, like, your property taxes, if you're a real estate, if you own real estate, this is your property taxes at work. And it's costing taxpayer money, whereas they could have just actually had an independent commission come in and draw fair lines, like they did in Pennsylvania's State House, by the way. But pay attention. See what you can do at your local level, right? Just know that local level is something you have the most influence over, but let's just be clear here, I'm not accusing anybody of corruption or anything like that necessarily here, but local government is also the most easily corruptible and backdoor dealish that you can get. So we don't know. I'm not accusing anybody on the Central Bucks School Board of anything, right? Just to be clear. But your local township board or your local borough council, whatever it is, those people are very approachable. They are very local. And for better or for worse, they are potentially impressionable. So don't let the people with the money come in and just like wave that around. No, go make your voice heard. This is democracy in action. You have to go and take action in order to have your representation function properly. And that's not maybe how it should work, but it is how it works, okay? So just keep that in mind. Whatever you can do to dive deeper into your local politic, it'll help you down the road a lot more. I can promise you that. Now, I know that I'm probably gonna go way too long talking about RFK Jr. here, but I feel like it needs to be done. And although it's not like a headline thing on my Chiron necessarily as much, and in the thumbnail, because another clip came out today that made me go, what the hell is wrong with this guy? But okay, let's go with, all right, let's go what is this? Last Friday, Robert Kennedy Jr. was caught on tape. I don't know if that's the right. Again, I don't know, because he didn't really back off of this either. But a leaked tape of RFK Jr. at a dinner or a fundraiser is showing him discussing how, and pretty adamantly stating that COVID-19 is a biological weapon designed to target specific types of people, and certain groups are less prone or not targeted. Now, I am trying to not load too much, in the preface here, but we talked about this once before in another clip. It kind of got overlooked by a lot of people. You can go back, and I talked about this prior, but this audio tape has not been overlooked. This one has not been overlooked because, well, we'll discuss it in a sec. Here is Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
And the technology that we now have to develop these microbes, we've put hundreds of millions of dollars into ethnically targeted microbes. The Chinese have done.
He said ethnically targeted microbes, for those, who maybe couldn't have made that out. I know it's a little muffled. His voice is what it is. But like, this is also a little bit of a distance for those not watching, so it's not exactly the most clean audio, but just so you know.
Same thing. In fact, COVID-19, there's an argument that it is ethnically targeted. COVID-19 attacks certain races disproportionately. The races that are most immune to COVID-19 are because of the structure of the genetic structure, genetic differentials among different races of the receptors of the ACE2 receptor. COVID-19 is targeted to attack Caucasians and black people. The people who are most immune are Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese. But we don't know whether it was deliberately targeted.
The people around him are just like, what the hell are you talking about?
That or not, but there are papers out there that show the racial and ethnic differential impact to that. We do know that the Chinese are spending hundreds of millions of dollars developing ethnic bioweapons, and we are developing ethnic bioweapons. That's what all those labs in the Ukraine are about. They're collecting Russian DNA, they're collecting Chinese DNA, so that we can target
people. What he's talking about is absolutely insane.
People by race.
So, all right, so I don't need the second part, but this is beyond just being cringe, which that's a baseline. It is dangerous. How should I say this? It can't be overlooked that, frankly, two of the most targeted groups of individuals with regards to hate crimes in the last 2 to 3 years, and for Jewish Americans it's been 7 or 8 years specifically, that Chinese people and Jews in America have been targeted at I mean, any sort of hate crime is, I guess, disproportionate, but it can't be overlooked that this type of rhetoric adds fuel to the fire for conspiracy theories, because this is a conspiracy theory. Like, we'll talk about the bioweapon part of it in a second. This is a conspiracy theory, just basically talking about how China, because this is you have to draw these conclusions. Somehow, China is targeting white and black people with a bioweapon that apparently only a few people know that they can do. RFK happens to be one of them in theory because he was researching it for a book. And that targeting is so specific that China, because I guess we have to take China's word for the reporting, right? That China barely even had any deaths from COVID, which we know we know for a fact is not true. We know that China lied about their numbers. But let's just say, okay, so you have to say that China developed the weapon in a lab. It was leaked. That he's acting like that's just like, oh yeah, that we know that. We don't know that. We don't know that. That's a theory. The most commonly accepted theory is at the wet market from a bat. We all have heard this. It is not confirmed, and neither is the lab theory. Okay? To say that we are developing bioweapons, that's not a shocker. We spend almost $900 billion with a B, $900 billion that is on the books for the Department of Defense. Okay. We have no argument that that's probably something that exists, but to then say that it is unleashed upon the public, it is specifically unleashed from China onto the United States and the rest of the world to target white and black people. But Chinese people and Ashkenazi Jews are exempt somehow. Their biology is so different than, like, an Ashkenazi Jew is, for all intents and purposes, a white person, right? Unless you are a white supremacist and think that Jewish people are not white, then for the most part, Ashkenazi Jews are white people. So him saying that also underrides a certain level of what is the intent here? Why are you drawing this conclusion? Why not? Well, first of all, why are you talking about this? But why are you grouping these two together as a global, this conspiracy theory, this other, right? And I can't, I have to move forward because I'm going to talk about this for way too long, but there's 2 other clips that I need to talk about, and one of them, the next one, also implicates COVID, so we will talk about it again. But the fact is that this is a dog whistle. This is not proven in any sort of case. The lab leak itself, the bioweapon, the fact that China lied about their numbers, so if they did this, they were killing their own people. The list goes on. It's like it's so hard to even fact check because it's just so much crap coming out all at once. But guess what? This next one combines. Here, let me read chat first. Lindsay says, this is why we need critical thinking. Learning how to see credible sources and the difference between correlation, causation, and systematic and structural racism is different. Millions of Americans died pre-vaccine because there was no vaccine. Certain groups of people are more likely to suffer from the spread of infectious disease because of infrastructural failures. And that is true. That is true. But here's the thing. He's not arguing that. He's not even saying that because of a socioeconomic lack of medical infrastructure. He's just saying because of the genetic makeup. That is what he's actually saying. Because of the genetic makeup of certain groups, they are less predisposed to getting COVID. And now, even if, let's just say, in the abstract, let's just say that was true. Somehow, it just targets the two largest populations in America. That's the, we don't want to say oh, well, maybe it affects people, the deaths are highly correlated with people with heart conditions or with obesity or with certain things that are tied with normal heart conditions or I'm drawing a blank on it because whatever. But you know what I'm saying. The normal capacity in these things is implicated by having COVID. It is not to say that okay, the genetic makeup of this person predisposes them to having COVID, which we know that does happen for certain illnesses. Yeah, of course. People that have certain traits are at more risk of certain things. I don't have examples off the top of my head, but we all know that that's true, right? But COVID to be designed for it, that's a whole nother level of craziness that's only going to be topped by this video. Here we have right-wing grifter and Daily Wire host Jordan Peterson talking and ranting as he does about how climate change is not real. And then we have RFK Jr., who is supposed to be a progressive, responding to this and talking about COVID in the same breath. So let's take a listen.
I've seen the climate apocalypse use fear to induce something approximating
the climate. Oh my God. I'm sorry. I made it 3 seconds in this. Jordan Peterson is a nut job. The climate apocalypse, he's saying it like it's fake. He's saying climate change doesn't even exist. He is not even saying that climate change exists. Now, he's jumping out of his chair. You can see it. He's jumping out of his chair to say the climate apocalypse is used to create an authoritarian dictatorial state, shoving it down our throats. They love to say that. They love to say that. Right-wingers love to say the shoving it down our throats. The right-wing, the authoritarian climate activists that have no power. The Green New Deal hasn't been gone into play. We don't really get subsidies for renewable energies, but somehow the renewable energy and the climate change activists are just so authoritarian. They want to control us.
the same kind of level of tyranny as far as I'm concerned.
Tyranny. Tyranny. You hear this? Climate change activists, in his mind, are so authoritarian that it is equivalent to tyranny. The climate change activists that have, what, like a handful of Congress people that actually support what they believe? Oh my God.
That characterized the vaccine lockdown. So help me sort that out.
First of all, let me just say this about climate. I believe that carbon in the atmosphere and methane does increase warming. Look around. You can...
Yeah, so here's RFK Jr. Remember, this is... I need to remind you guys. RFK Jr. is running in the Democratic primary. He is not running as a Republican, which that might shock some people. He is running in the Democratic primary. So he has to say, yeah, well, you know, obviously climate change exists. I have to say that. But
You can see it everywhere. Ice caps are melting, etc. The Greenland ice sheet. I spent a lot of time outdoors, and I see over 69 years, I've seen the changes, and I've seen the mass migration of animals, of southern animals like black vultures, the northern increase in their ranges. I've kept track since I was a kid about when the leaves turns, and it's steadily moved up each year. And so I see that. All of my senses are telling me that the warming is occurring. My opinion is basically, as I said, it's based on common sense. I agree 100%.
It's common sense. Now here's I'm going to pause it. And if, for those who are watching live, you tell me, what do you think is common sense reaction policy and hopefully prevention policy with regards to climate change? You can throw it in the chat. You can say, hey, we're going to invest in electric vehicles. We want to change the energy grid. We want to subsidize renewable energies. We want to maybe move away from fossil fuels. We want to subsidize individuals to power their homes by having solar, having wind and geothermal invested in by municipalities. I mean, the list goes on and on. We could talk about it for days and days and days, but I'm not I don't think that any of you are going to say what he thinks is common sense. Remember, there is more. I say this with a lot of, not authority. Like, I'm not a climate scientist, but with authority in the sense that this is what the science says, okay? There are more scientific studies that have been published and peer-reviewed that say that climate change is real, and it is at least partially man-made. Then, the amount of studies that say that smoking causes lung cancer. There is that level of certainty from the science. Now, people want to say, oh, yeah, but science is not, you can't say that the science is concluded. Yeah, no, science is not concluded. You have to continue to always evolve and learn and adapt. But when the overwhelming majority, and I don't mean majority as in 51%. I'm talking about nearly 99%. It's like 98.7% of all peer-reviewed studies in the field of climate say that climate change is real and it is at least partially man-made. That is not something that we could just say we can ignore. Yep, just let things be. Yes, or well, common sense, guys. Common sense is
percent with you that this
he's agree. Common sense is not 100% agreeing with Jordan Peterson, by the way.
crisis is being used as a pretext for clamping down totalitarian controls the same way that...
I'm sorry. Let me just rewind that for you. I'm gonna emphasize what he just said. This is RFK Jr. stating, as the supposed left-wing progressive, that, and you will hear him say it out of his own mouth, that the climate crisis is being utilized as a pretext for authoritarian, totalitarian rule.
I agree 100% with you that this crisis is being used as a pretext for clamping down totalitarian controls the same way that the COVID crisis was. And it's the same people.
The same way that the COVID crisis was, which killed over 1 million Americans, by the way. And would have been way worse had we not had the vaccines, which he doesn't support, by the way. He only injects himself with steroids, not HGH. He is saying that it's the same people that want to control you with regards to COVID, which, by the way, it wasn't about control in COVID. It was about public health and public safety, which, yeah, they don't believe that. You can believe whatever you want, I suppose. But in reality, it is 100% regarding public health and safety. Now, if, here's the thing, if these people are so all-knowing and all-powerful that they were able to control the population with COVID, which they weren't, by the way. Remember that people pretty quickly were just out and about. We can argue about when we should, when we could, when we did, whatever. But for the most part, for like a year, people were choosing, with the support of the government, the Trump government, by the way, to stay home. There were lockdowns, yes. You weren't getting arrested in the United States, maybe in some odd place for doing something, but, you know, in Pennsylvania, you were not getting arrested. And we had a Democratic governor. Oh. He is claiming that it was the authoritarian, totalitarian government during COVID, which I guess implicates Trump, but it's the same type of thing. It's the same people trying to utilize the climate crisis, which he's supposed to believe in, as a pretext for totalitarian tyranny. The logic doesn't even follow. They're not the same people, first of all, because he's going to talk about billionaires, which Jordan Peterson loves billionaires, so I don't know what the hell he's talking about to Jordan Peterson about it. His critique is not of billionaires, because guess what? Guess what his solution is? I don't even want to say it yet, because when you hear it, if you're drinking something, you might spit out your water.
It's intelligence agencies, it's the World Economic Forum, it's the
Dog whistle.
Billionaires Voice Club at Davos, and it's the same kind of cabal of people who will use every crisis to stratify society toward, greater power for the super rich and greater power for the military, greater power for the intelligence apparatus, and less power for everybody else.
So he's about to say something important here, but he is saying that the climate crisis and responding to it, something that the overwhelming majority of Americans want to do, an insane amount of young people want to do, because guess what? We're the ones that are going to inherit the earth. He is saying that what we want to do, we must be brainwashed because we want to support billionaires. We want to support Bezos and Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, and it doesn't even follow. It doesn't even follow. Trust me, I love bashing the billionaire class, right? We can do it all the time. His solution is not to tax the rich. His solution is not to have a wealth tax. His solution is not to subsidize solar. His solution is not to get rid of the subsidies for big oil. No, he doesn't want a war on carbon.
War on carbon is not going to solve the problem. If we don't have a habitat left at the end, my approach to energy is using...
I'm sorry, one more time before he gets to this. A war on carbon doesn't matter if we don't have a habitat at the end, but we might not have a habitat at the end if we don't make a move to renewables, because the environment is changing, and that's why we see increased wildfires in the Northeast. We see flash flooding all the time. We see tornadoes ripping through, and this is just in Bucks County. He is saying that if we have a war on carbon, it doesn't matter because we might not have a habitat. Well, we won't have a habitat unless we move towards renewable energy and a sustainable energy system that reduces our emissions and hopefully doesn't make climate change worse. But here's his solution.
And my approach to energy is using free markets and not top-down control. We can recover what we had, but we just have to stay out of fear, because that is the weapon of tyrants. If you like this video,
Yeah, no, you heard that right. RFK Jr. wants to use free markets. This is the progressive. This is the so-called progressive. He is talking about the most neoliberal approach to addressing the climate crisis that you could possibly imagine. Free markets. He doesn't even mention the billions of dollars that are used to subsidize fossil fuel companies in this country. Now, even if, let's just say today, we were like, you know what? No more subsidies for big oil. No more subsidies for solar, wind, or whatever. Free market time, guys. Well, guess what? Guess who that benefits? It's not the renewables. Because if you have a totally free market, then what happens is, as pointed out in the chat, you have extreme exploitation, expropriation of resources. You have fracking. You have drilling. You have all this stuff to extract the resources that are limited. And yeah, they might be cheaper now, but they are detrimental to the environment. Number one. Number two, they're not sustainable, both in the sense literally for the environment, but two, because they are limited as a resource. And three, having a free market starting from wherever Kennedy would be elected, he would become in January 2025. Free market in January 2025. Well, guess what? The ones that have hegemony over the energy markets, the energy space, are the ones that pre-exist now, which is the fossil fuel industry. So even if it's like saying we're going to have me, Connor O'Hanlon, run a race against Usain Bolt. Okay, well, I'm going to get blown out, right? Usain Bolt's at least was the fastest man on earth. But this is like saying we're going to run 100 meters and we're going to put Usain Bolt at the 50-meter line. What? This is free market. He just gets to start there. He might have started with an advantage, not just the natural born advantage that he has, just being a better runner. But he's had years and years and years of subsidization. He's had years and years and years of training. You know, it's the same kind of thing. And we're just going to put him ahead. Because he's a much bigger and stronger athlete. He's faster than you. ExxonMobil is just a bigger and better company. It's just free market. That's capitalism. Capitalism, baby. Free markets from a so-called progressive. And he's talking about top-down control. Look, it's not even about control. Desubsidize, we don't even have to have like a carbon tax. We probably should, but let's just say we don't have that, right? Deprioritize fossil fuels and prioritizing renewable energies alone would be a step in the right direction. Now, it's not fast enough, but it's something. And it's just, you cannot possibly tell me, look, this will be a good transition, okay? Because I can't possibly watch another one of these videos. So we'll skip the third video from RFK for right now. But you can't tell me that Joe Biden's just a neoliberal shill and he does blah, 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 and then go and tell me you're going to vote for RFK Jr., who doesn't support Medicare for all. He doesn't support universal health care at all. He's obviously doesn't even support the idea of combating climate change at this point, at least with a serious measure. That's not even taking into consideration his insane vaccine takes, not just COVID, with other vaccines. And it's not even to mention he has a ridiculous take on Ukraine and Russia as well. So that leaves us to, well, if this is the alternative in a Democratic primary, then geez, Joe Biden should be smooth sailing. Because although Marjorie Taylor Greene might think so, but Joe Biden is not FDR. But someone seems to think so. Here is from Turning Points Action, which Charlie Kirk, right-wing radio host, Turning Points USA, which is supposed to be for young kids. Like, they are trying to literally groom kids to be conservatives. Yes, they claim you're grooming the kids. You're grooming the kids. No, this is literally supposed to be targeted towards kids. Now, it's of course not. You'll see they tried to and they failed. You'll see there's advertisements all over the screen for gold and silver, which tells you the target audience that this is going to. But here's Marjorie Taylor Greene talking about Joe Biden, comparing him to LBJ and FDR.
Lyndon B. Johnson is very similar to Joe Biden. How are they the same? They're both Democrat socialists.
Democrat socialists. For those of you who don't know, by the way, I won't go into the vast distinctions between different social democracy, democratic socialists, socialists, Marxists, Leninists, Stalinists, Maoists, whatever buzzword you want to throw out. I just want to point out that she says Democrat socialist, which is not a real thing. It's democratic socialist. They say Democrat hard because it's the rat that's emphasized. That's why they say this. If you ever see like Tucker Carlson, well, he's off the air now, but if you ever see like Sean Hannity or any of these people, they always go Democrat because they want it to sound like rat.
Lyndon B. Johnson was the majority leader in the Senate. Does that sound familiar? He was vice president to Kennedy. Joe was vice president to Obama. He was appointed as the president after JFK to Obama.
Let me just rewind this.
President to Kennedy. Joe was vice president to Obama. Lyndon B. Johnson was the majority leader in the Senate. Does that sound
familiar? Let me just tell you that Lyndon Johnson might have been Senate majority leader, but Joe Biden wasn't.
He was vice president to Kennedy. Joe was vice president to Obama.
Wow, they were both vice president.
He was appointed as the president after JFK was assassinated, then he was elected.
Wait, so is that supposed to be similar? Was Obama assassinated and Joe Biden was president in 2012 or something? What the?
Big socialist programs were the Great Society.
The Great Society? I've heard of that.
The Great Society were big government programs to address education, medical care, urban problems, rural poverty, transportation.
What?
Medicare, Medicaid, food stamps,
How dare
and
they?
welfare.
Oh my goodness. Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, welfare. Oh my God. The most popular programs in the United States history. Oh my God. Who is this Lyndon Johnson guy? We should vote for him. Now, of course, like, here's the thing. Like, there's plenty to criticize LBJ about. You know, the Vietnam War, the delay in civil rights. I mean, granted, she's not going to talk about it, I guess, but the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act were also passed under Lyndon Johnson. But, like, it's not like Lyndon Johnson was this, like, super progressive anti-racist, by the way. But, like, you know, we take the good with the bad. People are products of the time. He was an old man by that point, but, you know, he did a lot of good stuff. And that's LBJ. You're not even talking about FDR. Like, you're coming at FDR, you're coming at the GOAT, okay? FDR was so popular that he was elected 4 times. They had to put in term limits after him. Like, the dude was so popular that they had to change the Constitution. That's how, like, you're comparing Joe Biden to some of the most influential presidents. And now, if remember, LBJ was appointed, as she pointed out, after the president was assassinated. So LBJ was following from JFK, which was also one of the most popular presidents of all time. These are Democrat, like, legends. You're not talking about, like, some scrub. You're not talking about, you know, some 1850s Dixiecrat. We're talking about the actual goats of the Democratic Party. And she is comparing Joe Biden to them in, like saying, like, this is Frankenstein and Dracula.
Of economic opportunity and big labor and labor unions.
Oh, no!
Now, LBJ had the Great Society, but Joe Biden...
Love the Great Society. We need to have a greater society, if you ask me.
Biden had Build Back Better,
Which didn't pass, by the way.
and he still is working on it. The largest public investment in social infrastructure and environmental programs that is actually finishing what FDR started, that LBJ expanded on, and Joe Biden is attempting to complete.
Okay.
Socialism.
Now, I just want to take a second to say that Build Back Better, if it had passed, would have been one of the most influential and huge pieces of legislation to ever pass in the United States. What she's saying is true, other than the fact that she called it socialism, because nothing about it was socialist. Nothing about Build Back Better was socialist. Now, let's put that in its own category. Even if we run with, okay, something like Medicare, which is government-run healthcare, is not technically socialist. And if you look back at the Great Society for LBJ, but you go a little bit further back and you look at the New Deal under FDR, FDR was by absolutely, and neither was LBJ, absolutely no means. This is why we have to know our history. They were absolutely not socialists. Even socialists today or back then, well, definitely back then, would not say, oh yeah, they're socialists. They might approve of some of what they did, but you can just tell that there is not, there is just a total lack of educational background for Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's reading, obviously. She has no idea what this stuff is. She is just learning this stuff as she's reading it. She says Lyndon B. Johnson like she's finding out that there's a B in between Lyndon and Johnson. Like, what is this B? Baines. What kind of middle name is that? But that's besides the point. FDR was pressured from the left following the 1920s and 1930s and the 1940s up until his death pretty much, but mostly in the 1930s from his left flank, which actually were socialists. There actually used to be a socialist party that had a lot of, not a lot, but like a relatively a lot of influence within the country. Now, to win some of those people over and to be the compromise candidate, which is what a social democrat is a mixture of socialism and capitalism, which, by the way, the New Deal single-handedly saved capitalism in America, because the Great Depression, you may have heard this, maybe Marjorie Taylor Greene might not have, but in 1929, there was this thing called the Great Depression, where there was a market collapse and capitalism almost went by the wayside without government interference, without government jobs, without government investment in infrastructure. And frankly, you can throw in the fact that there was a war in which the United States came out the single superpower, basically producing goods for across the world, empowering women in the workforce. Wait, what? Empowering like the. And there's problems with the New Deal. There's problems with the Great Society. There is a lack of intersectionality in a lot of this stuff. But to just blatantly disregard the history of our country for the country that they supposedly love, it seems like they absolutely hate everything about our country, by the way, including now and back then. To absolutely disregard all of this stuff and say, you know what, FDR's a socialist, LBJ's a socialist, and Joe Biden's a socialist. Joe Biden was the senator from Delaware that created that at least helped create the problem with the student loan debt crisis. You think that that's a socialist? You have to literally not have ever picked up like a child's book to not understand that. Like, you would have to have the thought process of like a caterpillar to think that Joe Biden, who, yeah, maybe is slightly to the left of Obama's presidency. I don't think personally he's to the left of Biden, but not Biden, of Obama. But Biden's presidency is a little bit to the left because guess what? There was a primary in 2020 that moved him to the left by a social democrat, Bernie Sanders, and the pressure on that and the labor support and all those things. That is building a movement. That is influencing power. That is what we should be doing. But the rhetoric, this is fear-mongering. This is Red Scare. Communist, Marxist, which again, I say this every single time. I mean, I am trying to understand personally. This is something that I find interesting because of what's going on in Ukraine and in Russia and in Eastern Europe. I am interested in learning more about the Russian Revolution and understanding the factions that grew there, how the Soviet Union came to be, how it collapsed. And it's not to be like, oh, like this is what we should do in America. No, you have to know your history. You have to know what goes on in the world. It's like saying like I'm sure Marjorie Taylor Greene has a very strong opinion about Israel, but I'm 100% sure that she has never read a book. She's never read a news article about the Israeli-Palestinian conflicts from the 1940s, the creation of the country, or anything since, right? So I'm reading a book about the Russian Revolution, understanding that literally there's like dozens and dozens and dozens of subcategories of these socialists that hate each other and they fight amongst each other. It's actually very interesting to learn, but no. Marxist, communist, socialist Joe Biden. Like, the dude is straight up like the credit card senator when he was in the Senate. He is not anywhere near a socialist. Like, Bernie Sanders is not actually even a socialist. People, like, that's besides the point. Like, that's a conversation for another day. He's a social democrat. He believes in capitalism mixed with socialism. And it doesn't mean like socialism, like we need to overturn and have a revolution. No, it's like something should be run by the government. Healthcare, prisons, education. I mean, basic common goods, the social good. Social contract. I mean, like, these are basic tenets of a society, frankly. But interestingly enough, I won't play it, but Biden turned her words into like a campaign ad, and I thought that was great. It was awesome. All right, quickly. Ron DeSanctimonious is struggling. I mean, other than just, I'm sorry, I need to actually pull this up. I didn't look this up. Meatball Ron. I'm trying to, I need to find this video. I'm so sorry. Oh no. I should have looked this up before. Oh no. I can't find it. Oh, here it is. Here it is. Here it is. Here it is. Oh no. Here it is.
Hungry. 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 Hungry.
Like, I'm sorry, I couldn't find it. But this is like, this is not the collapse of his of his campaign. Although it seems, you know, it coincides with it. Now, Ron DeSantis has fired at least a dozen campaign staffers. Campaign staffers because of his failing to increase in the polls. And no, guys, I'm sorry. I don't know why he said that. I don't really know. And like, look, I didn't believe it was real, but apparently it is. I just saw that clip over and over again. And yeah, putting fingers, Ron DeSantis. I don't know why he's saying that. I guess he really was hungry. But last week, DeSantis fired about 12 staffers. He is significantly behind Donald Trump in quarterly fundraising, which, by the way, Joe Biden is outpacing all of the Republican candidates combined in their quarterly fundraising. But Ron DeSantis is never back down. The super PAC is losing. And yeah, I mean, frankly, this is just good. This is just good for us, I think. I think as a left-wing person, I would prefer to run against Trump. Like, there's no hiding that. I think that Ron DeSantis is much more dangerous for the country. I think that Joe Biden could beat him, to be honest with you. Just probably as good as well as Trump. But look, honestly, I think that Trump's not as bad as DeSantis. And they're both horrendous, don't get me wrong. But DeSantis is an actual danger, I think, to democracy, he is look, Trump is no saint when it comes to the LGBTQ plus community, but Ron DeSantis has actually made it a point of his to go after that community, like specifically targeting them. Now, do I think that Donald Trump would pass a 6-week abortion ban? I don't think so. Personally, I don't think so. Well, you know who did? Ron DeSantis in Florida. 6 weeks. Do you support that? I don't. I mean, it's frustrating because then we go, this was like this big thing. We're going to have Jake Tapper interview, which Jake Tapper's fine. He's fine. He's a fine journalist commentator. But he's not like a hard-hitting, like, I'm going to ask him the hardest questions. And here we have with, and yeah, no. Mickey in chat. We can't take Trump. He didn't take the position seriously. He had no idea what he was doing. He didn't even think he'd win that election. I agree to some extent, but remember, I'd probably rather have somebody that just doesn't have like an actual agenda to create second-class citizens in the country. He might do it inadvertently. He might do it because he's a bigot. But, like, this guy wants to do it on purpose. He has already done it in his state, and he will only make it worse on a federal level. We have to talk about just harm reduction. I mean, this is pragmatic politics. I mean, it's like saying, like, Chris Christie is better than Donald Trump. You could probably argue that some of the other ones are better than Donald Trump, too. Like, Nikki Haley's probably better than Trump, right? If we had to pick one, that's it. I would pick Ron DeSantis dead last. Dead last. This guy is an actual fascist. Like, we're not playing around here. Trump borderlines on the fascism. You could definitely write a paper and it would be a convincing one, right? I mean, I had the option to do that way back when I was in college, right? In 2016. You could say it. You know, the nationalism, the racism, xenophobia, the authoritarianism, yes. But, like, he's also inept. He's also kind of stupid. Ron DeSantis, I think, is not that stupid. I think he actually knows what he's doing. And that's a problem. So here we have one clip. We have 2 clips, actually, from this interview. Jake Tapper, CNN, Ron DeSantis. This was actually a tweet from Ian Miles Chung, who's a right-wing loser, he thinks this is a good clip. So, interesting. But this happened 2 days ago.
About this sweeping new military policy you proposed that, in your words, will rip the woke out of the military.
Woke goes to die. Right here, guys. Woke goes to die. I can't really do the Ron DeSantis impression, but it's just a Trump impression with Ron DeSantis's mannerisms thrown on there as well.
The Pentagon response is that Army and Marines readiness is the best it's been in years, and reenlistment in the Army is the best it's been in years. So their argument might be in response, what problem are you trying to solve?
Just before he answers this, by the way, if you want to know, DeSantis has a background with the military and specifically with Guantanamo Bay, and you might want to Google that. DeSantis, Guantanamo Bay, force feeding. You can do your research there.
Well, why do we have the worst recruiting that we've had since the Vietnam conflict? Why have great warriors being driven off, such as with
Great warriors? We're talking about the military. I mean, like, why are we acting like this is like Vikings? Like, dude, like I'll wield an axe, but we're not talking about great warriors charging into battle. The military doesn't even operate like that anymore. He should know this. That's not how the military operates. And look, there is a blatant disrespect from the right wing of active military members and of veterans, by the way. But the veterans, we might have to discuss another day. But the active, I don't disgrace, like the active belittlement of women in the military, of, you know, trans people in the military, which they do exist. Trump banned them, remember, but that got reinstated, or got knocked back. The right wing consistently undermines and says, yeah, like women shouldn't be in the military. And then they complain about recruitment numbers being low, even though that there are physical requirements for women in the military. They just say, well, they shouldn't be in there. Like, this is the it's paradoxical. It's always paradoxical. Now, they don't want to say that it should be mandatory because then, then it's like Vietnam. But he kind of has to say that, or he fundamentally believes it. But he wants to blame recruitment being down on woke. The woke mind virus. And as David Pakman tweeted out, is if there's a cure for the woke mind virus, and I responded to it. Nobody liked it, by the way. But I thought it was pretty good. We would need Operation Woke Speed from, like the COVID warp speed from DeSantis to get rid of the woke mind virus. And yes, DeSantis is a great warrior against meatball subs. Yes, he is. Actually, he's not. We don't know if he likes meatball subs. We do know that he likes to eat pudding with his fingers, though.
the COVID-19 shot mandates? These were people that had been performing admirably.
Oh my God. I don't know how many shots you have to get if you enlist in the military, but to say that you get more than one would be a safe bet. I know that there is a number of active military members that can confirm that there is a significant amount of immunities and vaccines and different things you have to prepare yourself for going overseas. And I don't think that it's crazy to say that at the time, at least, that having the COVID vaccine was a bad thing. Just my 2 cents. Sir DeSantis.
A lot of them had COVID. They had natural immunity. They were told, take this shot or leave. So I think you've had a big problem with morale. You clearly have a problem with recruiting. And at this levels, everybody has acknowledged these recruiting levels are at a crisis. Why is that
Why are they at a crisis? We spend $900 billion on the military. Well, we will, at least in 2024. We spent $860 billion, I think, this year. Why is that? Is it because we spend billions of dollars making F-16s or whatever the hell they are? Or is it because we don't pay active military members enough and you recruit people targeting specific populations that need an alternative to college, because whether they're socioeconomic background or they just don't have the path set out for them right, or, you know what, someone goes into a military academy, they do all the right things, they do everything right, just the way that Ron DeSantis would want, but they're woke. They come in and they're woke because they went to college. Oh my God. we can't have the woke in there because then they become officers. You can't become an ROTC officer or go to the Naval Academy and be woke. Then nobody wants to come and join my war machine.
The case, I think it's because people see the military losing its way, not focusing on the mission and focusing on
What mission? Are we at war? Like, who are we fighting? We actually shouldn't be at war, by the way. But what mission? What war? Who are we fighting? We have 800 military bases across the country. Not across the country. I'm sorry. Across the globe. 800. Like, what are we doing? How about you close 400 of them and give the money to the people that are active military members? Or how about you close the 400 of them and you give proper health care coverage to the veterans? You fund the Veterans Affairs, healthcare services. Why don't you do that? You know who advocated for the VA? You know who worked to support veterans in this country? It wasn't doofus Ron DeSantis. It was actually Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders who worked to actually expand VA coverage. Because progressive people actually give a damn about veterans. Progressive people give a damn about active military members. That, like, I don't know if that comes as a surprise. Maybe it comes as a surprise to some of you. But I am 100% supportive of drastically overfunding, I'll even say that, the VA. Because people, and I've said this on previous shows, and I don't know what iteration with who or talking about what. I personally believe that we should give the world to people that serve in the military. I don't really care what it costs. Like, if you do, that's fine. You can have that argument with me. But I think someone that's willing to sacrifice their life deserves to have health care. Yeah. No. Yeah, that's not radical. Yeah, I think that somebody that is willing to sacrifice their life for this country and the principles that the country is founded on deserves to have housing. Yeah, no, that's not radical. I believe, hear this one. I believe that somebody that is willing to sacrifice their life for this country and the principles of freedom and equality and justice, they should have food. Oh my God. Connor, you're so radical, man. Food, housing, healthcare. Wow. You're like you're a total radical socialist, man. Although, wait. Military is the largest socialist operating body in the United States. But that you're so crazy, dude. It's just the woke. It's just the woke, man. You don't get it. You don't get it. You want them to have food, clothing, housing, healthcare. It's like they should have a life. Yeah, you're right. In the chat, not only their life, but they're spending time away from their families, their home. They're potentially losing opportunities for work, for career development, for life, just general life experiences. It's a sacrifice to join the military. We recognize this. I think everybody in the chat is probably some of the most progressive people that I know. We all recognize this. And we can all say, like, yeah, we know people that are, maybe a little wacky, like Ron DeSantis, that do this kind of stuff. Okay. I still think, and that, maybe this is crazy. I actually think that people that I politically disagree with, they also deserve healthcare. They also deserve housing. Yeah, and they also deserve food. I don't think that that's crazy, in fact. I think that's common sense. Now, that's this first clip, right? Okay. This is the same interview. This is right after this. He goes, Jake Tapper talks about, he follows up on this wokeness in the military. Well, here you go.
Recruitment, without question, is a problem. The Army did this.
Recruitment's a problem because, let's be honest here, they don't pay people enough. And you have to be willing to die. I mean, that's a big one. So, like saying, hey, I mean, this is not comparable, so don't, don't take this out of context or anything, but like working in a back-breaking factory, you have to pay people well to do that. It's not that crazy to say that. For somebody to risk their life for this country, you should pay them well. It's not controversial. But no, we need 800 military bases, and we need F-16s or F-15s, whatever they are, the one that costs like $1.6 billion each. They don't function right.
Survey, I'll give you a copy of it if you want. They haven't released it, but I got my hands on a copy. And it surveyed people, I think 16 to 28 barriers to service, and beyond the ones such as don't want to die, don't want to be injured, don't want to be away from my family.
That's a key point there. He's saying beyond those, by the way. So when he says this number, remember that is beyond those things. So it's not including them.
The biggest issues were the number 2 issue: women and racial or ethnic minorities are discriminated against in the Army.
Sounds like woke, man. Oh, wait. No, that's the opposite of woke.
Wokeness is listed here, but it's only number 9. So that would suggest that wokeness is not as big.
Well, but I think there's an issue about, like, not everyone really knows what wokeness is.
What? Not everyone knows what woke is? But isn't your campaign slogan like, this is where woke goes to die? Or like, the woke mind virus, like, we're the, I don't know, I'm trying to like come up with like interesting campaign slogans for him. We're the antidote to the woke mind virus. Like, yeah, not everyone knows what woke is, because guess what? It was just a phrase. It was just a term that people used, like based, like saying something's based. Like, it's just a colloquial term. It's not like a definition of something. And the right wing co-opted it to say like, oh, like, this is derogatory. It's like saying liberal. If you say you're liberal to somebody on the right, it's like, oh my God, liberal. Connor's so liberal. Like, I don't even call myself liberal. I'm progressive. You know what I mean? Like, they just like, I'm not woke. I mean, to some people, I am woke. I'm the woke. I might be the leader, honestly, of like a section, like a company of the woke army. Like, I'm not a general, but I might be a lieutenant in the woke army.
I mean, I've defined it, but a lot of people who rail against wokeness can't even define it. And so I think it's a sense
that might be Trump.
Of, this is not something that's holding true to the core martial values that make the military unique.
Recruitment.
So there you have it. Wokeness is not actually a problem in the military, according to the survey of reasons why people don't join the military. It's almost like it's just the scapegoat, right? Okay. Last thing here today. This might be this might be a record-setting length show. Some of you may know and recall that, or if you see behind me, I'm a very strong union supporter. I very much, or as Marjorie Taylor Greene put it, big labor. Big labor. We support big labor. But we are seeing unprecedented labor organization and action this summer, specifically. I think I said that exact thing last summer, but this is literally the next summer unprecedented level of organizing and labor action. This includes the Writers Guild. This includes the potential of a UPS driver's strike, which would be huge. We see nurses in Pennsylvania, in fact. And now we have the actors union going on strike. SAG-AFTRA. And it's important to note that when people think of actors, a lot of people think big Hollywood stars, which, yeah, some of them definitely make a ton of money. But, and this may be a shocker, I don't find it to be that shocking, but the average actor is not Robert Downey Jr. It's not Chris Hemsworth in the Marvel movies. No, the average actor has to work to make enough money, about 23, 24. I wish I had a former guest on the show and friend of the program, I should say, David McMahon, who is a part, I believe, of SAG-AFTRA. When he came on to talk about Bucks County Water and Sewer, but he is a part of this union. Believe it's about $23,000 or $24,000 a year to have health insurance. Now, yeah, for, like I said, Robert Downey Jr., that might not be a problem because the dude makes $24,000 in a, couple days, whatever. But for the average actor, that's a good amount of work. And the average actor needs a union because otherwise you have deals that, let's say, are put forth by producers that want to scan someone's face and own their likeness. For one day of work, they could pay to own your likeness, and then you're a CGI person in movies for infinity. Now, I personally, maybe my likeness might be worth a couple $100 to somebody, but I'm not an actor, right? I'm not part of a union. I don't have that right, country, unfortunately. But these actors do. And they came together. They show solidarity. The big dogs, and the little guys go on strike. They authorize a strike. Because when I say that they literally were talking about scanning people and using their likeness to create CGI background characters in movies, that's not a joke. That is actually part of the proposal that the producers put. So it would be like, yeah, your acting career, it's one scan of your face. That's it. They want to, some of these people in Hollywood productions, and I'm not talking about the actors here, I'm talking about producers and, the big wigs and Bob Iger at Disney and these people that, the CEO, CFO, these people that think, we could just kind of, they have no grasp, they have no understanding, they have no care for the art that goes into filmmaking or music or, painting or photography or any of this stuff. They just CGI it. You can just create, a video game version basically of a person, and that's good enough. Like, do we really think that that's the type of society we want to live in? I don't want to live in that. But that's amongst many other things where it's talking about residual rates, which are basically just saying if we have a show that goes on Netflix and it's going on there for a certain amount of time, the actors should get some part of that deal. It's not that crazy. But I'm going to show you a video. Found it kind of interesting. I wanted to talk about it, I think last week, but it didn't. Actually, this video I think came out last Thursday, so it was like the day after the show, and it was like right when they were authorizing the strike. And some producers somewhere basically said that we're just gonna sweat these guys out. We're going to wait for actors to go hungry, lose their houses, and then they'll come crawling back. Here's Ron Perlman, who was Hellboy. That's what I know him as. He's actually, very well-known actor outside of that, but that's when I see him, that's what I see. Here's his response to that.
Office. The motherfucker.
Oh, warning.
Who said we're going to keep this thing going until people start losing their houses and their apartments. Listen to me, motherfucker. There's a lot of ways to lose your house. Some of it is financial. Some of it is karma. And some of it is just figuring out who the fuck said that. And we know who said that. And where he fucking lives. There's a lot of ways to lose your house. You wish that on people. You wish that families starve while you're making $27 fucking million a year for creating nothing. Be careful, motherfucker. Be really careful. Because that's the kind of shit that stirs shit up. Peace out.
Gotta end with that. Gotta end with the peace out. Yeah, I mean, this is the type of thing that people forget to talk about, or they just ignore, or they want to believe that we're the bad guys for saying, people deserve better. When we talk about the history of class in the world, I want to make sure I actually... I'm going to pull this quote. This quote is from JFK. Not RFK Jr., not him. JFK. Okay. He said in 1962, first anniversary of the Alliance for Progress, quote, "Those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable." This is actually the first line in my book. Okay. We have to acknowledge that there is, and there has been, and seemingly for an indefinite amount of period moving forward, there is class conflict. That exists. And throughout time, we've seen shifts in the dynamics. Now, we talk about nonviolent solutions. We talk about the New Deal. We talk about strikes. We talk about union organization. We talk about this history. Those are compromises. And I don't mean it as like we're threatening to do anything. I'm just saying that is compromise. Because guess what? There are more people. And this is the don't look up argument. There are more people that are working class, and in my opinion, middle class people are working class. Whatever distinction, we've gone through that before, right? There's more people that are working class that sell their labor, that make the median salary. The people that maybe struggle paycheck to paycheck, $400 expense would put them in deep hole. There's a lot more people in that category than there is in the billionaire category, or even the millionaire category. And as JFK said, those who make peaceful revolution impossible make violent revolution inevitable. And again, this is where something like Ron Perlman is saying, you threaten people's livelihoods. That is declaring war on somebody. This is why it's the framing of all this stuff is consistently pro-establishment, pro-institution, pro-system, and system just being broad here. I know those are big words because it just can mean anything. It is pro keeping power in place. Okay? And the compromise, like FDR, like LBJ, like these people, like MLK, right? We talk about the civil rights era, right? These are people that believe in nonviolence, that are advocating for it, and they fight in ways that they can and they're able to. But the history of class oppression, whether it be the Civil War in the United States, overthrowing slavery, which, yes, is a form of class. It was a racially based slavery, right, in the United States. But one person owning another creates two classes of people. Or you talk about the French Revolution, or you talk about, like I just was talking about earlier, the Russian Revolution. You talk about revolutions throughout history, they're largely based on class issues, systematic oppression of others. And this is not that, but it is clearly an allusion to something like that. When someone is saying we're going to wait you out and cause you to lose your home and you're going to be starving, basically. Yeah, I mean, people are going to get pissed. And if you did that to enough people, that is where you see cries for violence. And this is why this is why I believe that every single worker deserves a right to a union. Because if we have that, it reduces the need or the potential for violence. Because if people have representation, they feel heard, they have fair wages, they have housing, they have the ability to put clothes on their backs and food in their stomachs, there are certain baseline things that are taken care of. Your society is better off because of it. It's not a radical idea. But the second you start going after people like that, and if you piss off enough people, now the Actors Guild is not like a significant chunk of the population, right? But, theoretically, if you pissed off 100 million people, you're going to have problems. And again, I put that JFK quote in the beginning of my book because my book, my ideology, my agenda is a nonviolent path towards creating this solution. I mean, that's why I have this behind me here. Support your local union. Because you don't want to have one of these. You have Marquis de Lafayette talking about the American Revolution. This is duality of history, okay? These types of things, labor and class struggle is a constant thing. And we just want to make it fair. We want to have legitimate conversations, legitimate negotiations, and representation, and not get screwed and not be starving, which is not, I don't think, a radical idea. So, yeah. Ron Perlman laying down the fists. But with that being said, that's all I have for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, you can hit the subscribe button. Please do. We're close to 150 subscribers. Hit the thumbs up while you're here as well. It helps us in the algorithm. If you would like to, you can listen to the program. Let's just say you didn't want to see my beautiful, beautiful mug. You could listen to the show wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, etc., whatever. Spotify, whatever hosting platform that you prefer. You can follow the show on Instagram, on Facebook, and on TikTok at Greater Society Media. And you can support the show at patreon.com/Greater Society Media. And utilizing the link in the description of this video and or audio, you can join our Discord server, which you can talk to us, reach out, have discussions. And I didn't even check today, but people can join the Discord server and join on air if you would like to and discuss things. That is an open line, by the way. So anybody that wants to do that, join the Discord server. Even if you disagree with me, come and join and we'll hash it out. But thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, stay safe. Get involved with your local politics. And if you live in Central Bucks, meeting is on the 24th, 7 p.m. Central Bucks West. If you can make it, unless it gets canceled, check my social media at Con O'Hanlon on Twitter if you need to. But until next time, stay safe. Peace.